Terry. I'm doing some Terri cook videos again. Although today I'm not going to be really cooking as much as I am going to be preserving. A bunch of people have asked me how I make my kimchi. I am obviously not Korean. And so there are people out there who are doing probably much more authentic versions of kimchi. I'm doing the easiest version. The whatever the gringa version of being Korean is, I'm going to do that version of kimchi. But I will say that I try to honor traditional recipes as much as possible. And so we're going to take our chance at this, okay? Now listen, kimchi takes at least 3 to 5 days to ferment. That fermented process is what makes it so healthy for you. There are studies out there that have been done that prove that kimchi and fermented things can aid in protecting you against viruses like the flu, colds, COVID-19. Look it up, it's out there. So fermented food is really healthy for you, but it takes time to ferment. So this video is going to be made over a series of days, and I will be wearing different outfits. Okay, so the first thing is to talk about what we're going to need. You definitely need Napa cabbage, and no other cabbage will do. It has to be Napa. We're going to use scallions. We're going to use a whole lot of salt. It's a 1/4 cup of salt, and it must be kosher, non-iodine salt. That's important, and I'll tell you why later. Okay, for my strict vegetarian people, you're gonna not use the fish sauce. Fish sauce is what traditional kimchi uses, and so I'm gonna be using fish sauce. If you want that, that flavor of the fish sauce, you can get it with kelp powder if you're vegetarian, strict vegetarian. You're gonna need garlic, ginger, and you're gonna need Korean chili pepper. It's got a name and I'm gonna remember it and tell you later. But you definitely want it to be the Korean chili pepper. And then sugar. Now, a lot of kimchi recipes also put in daikon radish. I don't have any today, so that's not gonna be in this version of our kimchi. But if you want, you can just julienne some daikon, and I'll show you when that would have gone in the recipe. When I made my last batch, I had daikon laying around, and I used it in this recipe. But for today, it's just gonna be our good old Napa. The first thing you need to do is cut and rinse your Napa cabbage. After you cut and rinse it, we're going to be salting it. The salting process of getting the cabbage ready for fermentation is super important. It's what helps the fermentation process happen. All right, so we're going to cut the ends off the cabbage, and then each leaf we're gonna take and we're gonna go down the end and we're gonna cut in quarters. This is what they're gonna look like, each one. All right, so salting your Napa cabbage is the next step, okay? So it is a 1/4 cup of salt. That's a lot of salt. I get it, it's a lot of salt. But you're gonna be massaging the salt into each of the cabbage leaves, and so they kind of soften a bit. So again, you want all that salt to be kind of massaged into each cabbage leaf. You want to take each one and kind of make sure the salt is in there. Cover it all in salt. Okay, it has to be in a nice big bowl because you're going to be putting a lot of water on top of it. Okay, so then after you've kind of massaged the salt into the cabbage and gotten it a little soft, you're going to cover this in water till it covers the cabbage. Just enough until we cover it. Notice how I picked a much bigger bowl than the cabbage, and I'll show you why in a minute. Once you have enough water to cover all the cabbage, you've got to let it sit for a while with a plate on top of it. You want a plate that you're going to push down, and then you want some heavy object on top to hold that plate down. It could be whatever whatever it is that's got a clean bottom. It could be a can, if you have a big can of something. But you want something that is going to press down on the cabbage, the salted cabbage water. And you're going to leave this here for, I'm going to check and tell you how much time. I'm not sure I remember. I knew it was a long time. Okay, so this cabbage, this Napa cabbage has to sit in the salted water that's got a heavy object on it for 1 to 2 hours. You need it to absorb as much of that salt content as possible and to kind of soften under the pressure of the heavy weight of the plate and the object and the water. So we're gonna come back in 1.5 to 2 hours. It's been 1.5 hours and it's time to look at what we have here. We're gonna take up the plate. All right, and then we've got our cabbage that has been soaking in the salt water. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna rinse this cabbage 3 times. You wanna rinse it really well in cold water 3 times, and then we're going to, after it's rinsed, leave it in the colander. It needs to drain for 15 to 20 minutes, okay? So let me rinse this and we'll be right back. So while the kimchi is draining, you're gonna let it drain for that 15 minutes. You can dry out the bowl that it was sitting in. So, you know, wash it, rinse it, dry it. And then we're gonna use this for the sauce that we're gonna use to ferment it, okay? So it's going to be, oh, my watch is falling off. Hold on 1 second. You're gonna use 2 tablespoons of fish sauce, 6 cloves of garlic grated, 1 tablespoon of ginger grated, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Okay. And now this is where you have to decide how spicy you want this to be. This Korean chili pepper, you're supposed to put between 1 tablespoon and 5 tablespoons. 5 is your Korean, and you really love your kimchi super spicy. 1 is a mild kimchi. I like 3, 3.5. So, you know, you do you, boo. But we're gonna put 1, 2. I'm gonna do 3 this time because Rainer doesn't like it as spicy as everybody else. But, you know, 3, 3.5 is a good spice without killing yourself. Okay. So then we're gonna blend this all up together. Okay. And we have a TV going on in the back. All right. So let's check on the kimchi, see if it's drained enough. My timer hasn't gone off, so we'll be right back. So we've let our cabbage drain, and we have our paste. We're gonna now gently squeeze. They're very soft. You're gonna gently squeeze. I would recommend, by the way, using gloves for this part, okay? Because we're gonna get to a part where you're gonna be touching this paste, and 1, it could burn your skin, and 2, you don't wanna smell like this forever. You will too, so. All right, so you're gonna gently squeeze whatever liquid is left from the cabbage into, let me put this cabbage on the plate, into this, this paste. You want that to be the water that you use. Gently squeeze that water out. Okay? I feel like Tom Hanks in Castaway. I'm getting every little drop of that water. Okay? And that's the salty water that it absorbed while it was sitting there for those 2 hours. Even though we rinsed off the majority of the salt, that salt is part of what you need for the fermenting process. Okay? So now that we've gotten all that extra water out, the part you're gonna need the gloves for, oh, so noisy. is you're gonna be massaging this stuff into the leaves, okay? And you have to make sure that it gets onto all of it. And you really, really should use gloves. You should use gloves. You don't wanna not use gloves. So you wanna massage this all into the paste so that every leaf is coated in this paste, okay? Don't let it spray up into your eyes either, I tell you. That chili is spicy. Okay, so that water that you drained from the cabbage, that gives the paste a little bit more liquid. And then you've really got to massage it in there. Have I mentioned how important it is to wear gloves so your hands don't smell like this forever? And also, so it doesn't burn. You know, if you have any cuts on your hands, that is gonna burn, baby, burn. All right, I'll be back in a minute after I'm done massaging this in. Another 3 minutes or so. I've been massaging my cabbage with my gloves on, okay? Now we're gonna add, this is where you would add the daikon radish that I don't have. But you're also gonna add the scallions, okay? Those go in there. Those are 4 chopped scallions, okay? I finished massaging the cabbage with my gloves on, and I added 4 chopped scallions, okay? Doesn't that look amazing? And Rainer, who's filming it, can tell you it smells really good.
It smells so good.
Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna pack it into a mason jar, okay? You gotta pack it in really tightly, okay? Keep those gloves on. You wanna get them all in there. And you've gotta, now what you're gonna be doing is, Rainer, film from over here because I want you to see, you pack it in and you're pushing it down to release some of the liquid. Okay, you see how when I push it down, the liquid gets released? See that down at the very bottom? Yes. You want that liquid to be released. So as you're packing it down, you're packing it in tight. And then every now and then, and that's why you need a wide mouth of the jar, you're pushing down with your hand, do you see, to get that liquid? That liquid is what's gonna make it ferment. That's the word I was looking for. Obviously, I can't push something down and think of a word at the same time. Okay. Okay. This is gonna be some good kimchi right here. All right, so you wanna make sure you squeeze it all in there and you're trying to get liquid to the top here so that it covers all the cabbage. That is what's gonna keep it fermenting. Ideally, you would have a little bit more space at the top of this jar. Mine is going to overflow. I would always put a plate underneath your jar because as it's fermenting, it's going to bubble up out of the jar a little bit, and you want something to catch that moisture, okay? So here's where we're gonna stop our video, and then I'm gonna check back in. Kimchi can ferment from 1 to 5 days. I usually let mine do 3 days. It depends on how fermented you want it to taste. It'll give you different tastes if you stop the fermenting process at 1 day, or if you stop it at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I like 3. So I'm gonna leave this jar out of the fridge, and I'm gonna let it ferment with a plate under it or a bowl under it for the 3 days, and we're gonna keep checking it. And every day I check it, I'm going to be opening up the jar, pushing down the cabbage a little bit more to keep that liquid bubbling up to the top. And then when we're done fermenting it, when you wanna stop the fermenting process, you put it in the fridge. So we'll be back tomorrow at the same time to check in on our progress. Hello, we're checking on our kimchi. You're gonna see that some of it juices out over the side. Let me move this chair. And that happens when it's fermenting. It gets a little bubbly. So we're gonna take off the jar top, and what you really want to keep doing is making sure that all of the kimchi is covered in that liquid. You know, because if it's not covered in the liquid, it's not going to, it could go bad, right? So you just want to kind of push it down a little more. And get the juices flowing in there. Gonna cover it right back up. And we'll be back to check on it tomorrow. The hardest thing about making kimchi is waiting for it to be done. We're at day 2. It looks amazing. We're really excited. You could see that it's really good that you have this tray underneath, because you will get some of the juice kind of bubbling up as it ferments. There's the bubbling process that makes some of the juice come up through the ball jar top. But we're gonna squeeze it back down like I showed you the last time, and then we're gonna wait until the next day. Come, the day is here. Our kimchi has now gone for 3 full days. Again, you could leave it for 2 more if you want. Absolutely leave it for 2 more if you want it to have more of a fermented taste. For me, 3 days is enough. I'm gonna rinse the bottom of the jar really quickly, just because it gets, it's probably had some stuff released, just so it's not sticky on our fridge. And then I'm gonna do my last. What? Stop following me around so close. I'm gonna do my last open, which it might. Ooh.
Ooh.
I know.
Ooh.
That sound, that's the fermentation. The inability to open it, that's poor arm strength. Now you'll see this foamingness, this like kind of mini explosion. I should have rinsed it after I did this. You'll see it's because that's the fermentation. And now you're gonna keep pushing it down again into the jar, because you want to have it covered with liquid the whole time. Who said this wasn't going to be messy? Not me. I didn't say that. Okay, now we're going to rinse it off. So we really didn't need to rinse it the last time. Okay, and now goes in the fridge. And you know, you can eat it now. You could try it now. In fact, maybe I'll try it tomorrow. I like it better cold. So I'm gonna leave it in the fridge for 1 more day. When it's gonna be cold, we're gonna take it out. I'm gonna taste it. I'm gonna let the boys taste it. I'm gonna let you know how it tastes. And then we're gonna show you what you can cook in it or with it. Kimchi. The day has come. The day you've all been waiting for. We've waited. We've waited for the fermentation process to complete. And then we put it in the fridge and stopped the fermentation process and started the process of deliciousness. Now, kimchi is ready. Look at it. It's a work of art. It's beauty. All right, so first what we're gonna do is we're gonna try it just by itself. And then we're gonna talk about what we're gonna put it on tonight for dinner, okay? So let's get out one little piece of the kimchi. Look how yummy that looks. So good, so good. Delicious. Spicy, but not too spicy. I think 3 tablespoons of the Korean chili powder was perfect. Tart, flavorful. This is gonna be delicious tonight on our veggie hot dogs. Okay, boys.
Alrighty.
Kimchi veggie hot dogs. Tell me what you think.
Amazing. It looks great. I'll start
And you have
right here.
to tell me about the kimchi specifically.
I'm gonna get another bite because
Amazing.
that bite was mostly hot dog. Let me get another.
Got a big bite of kimchi.
Yeah, that's the best time you've made
2
it.
thumbs up.
Really good?
Delicious. Yes, that's good. That's really great.
Very
Thank
good.
you, boys. So kimchi hot dogs or kimchi fried rice or kimchi anything. Kimchi is the bomb diggity, and I recommend making it. It takes a few steps. It's not, an easy one-time thing, but it's worth it. And I'll see you back on Terri Cooks.